TitleMatchNetwork.com.
First question we ask everybody is, how did you get started in the wrestling business?
Well, I actually started in high school.
Okay.
And I was out for basketball when I was a sophomore, and I kept hitting my head on the rim. So the wrestling coach come over and said, maybe you better go out for wrestling. This might not be for you. I'm being facetious now. But anyway, That's how I started. And the first year, I never wrestled before. I took third in the state championship match as a sophomore. So that's pretty good for 1 year.
Yeah, I'd say.
And then from there, it's accelerated to thousands of matches and thousands of stories and a lot of fun.
Wow, that's awesome. And how did you wind up going pro?
Verne Gagne actually graduated from the same high school I did.
Oh,
really? And he was a state champion from Robbinsdale High School, and he was about 10, 12 years ahead of me. But I was the second state champion since he was a state champion, and he come to a lot of the high school matches. You know, they always go back to their alma mater. Well, anyway, I got a kind of a craving for it at that time.
Yeah. Were you a fan before you got into wrestling?
I was kind of a fan. Of course, then the wrestling was just getting, like in the early 50s and that it was just starting to blossom,
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't even have TVs, in 49, 50, when it first started coming out. And then, of course, it wasn't, you could only get it on certain channels because it was few and far between. They didn't have, the communication situation they have now. So.
Wow. Now, I read somewhere that you dropped out of school to get into the business. Is that true?
Well, I had a scholarship to the University of Minnesota for football and wrestling.
Wow.
But I got married at a very young age, and then this wrestling thing came along. And, of course, at that time, I had two kids, my two oldest. I got 5 children, 16 grandkids, and 2 great-grandkids.
Wow. God bless you.
Yeah, so we got a full house. But anyway, I had to make a living, and the scholarship was fine. But on the other hand, it wasn't putting any bread on the table. So.
Yeah. Now, back when you broke into the business, completely different than it is today. What was the training like that Verne put you through back then?
Well, but see, I was being trained by another guy named Joe Pazendak. Joe Pazendak was an old shooter guy from the old school, and I started working out with him at the YMCA, and then I never did go to Verne's camp. Verne helped train me, but this was prior to his camp situation. Kurt went to his camp, so I got to know him or meet him early before he even thinking about professional wrestling. But I really didn't have a problem with Verne until later on, until he got promotions, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. And then everything changed. Once you're poor, you're never rich. But that means that once you're poor, you never can make enough money to tell you that you are rich. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Here? And I think he got himself caught up in that. And I think that's what cost him his territory eventually with Vince, because Vince actually did truthfully go in and offer to buy it from him. And Verne says, there's no way, you don't have enough money. And he offered him a lot of money because he had Winnipeg, Minneapolis, Illinois, Wisconsin, Colorado, Omaha. So he had a nice territory.
Wow.
And those are major cities with good television ratings. And he said, no, he says, you never get this away from me. Well, 1 week later, Vince was there and had the television.
Wow.
So he should have taken his biscuit and run, right?
Yeah. I've heard that story. Some of the other guys have told that story. That
then you're familiar with it.
To buy it. Yeah. Were some of the guys frustrated when Verne was actively wrestling that he was just constantly putting the belt on himself? Or
yes.
Yeah.
There's it got to be I and me, and that's the thing with Greg. Greg, when you're the boss's son, you only got one way to go, and that's down. You start at the top, but Greg was a good wrestler, good athlete, but he didn't quite ever have the size, the bulk.
Yeah.
And that was really visible for the fans and everybody. He weighed about 179 pounds, and you put him in against these guys, and he started beating them guys, and it was almost incredible.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. Where on the other hand, you put Kurt in there, and it was you know what I mean. So that was part of our friction situation.
Yeah. Did you? I guess you probably wrestled against Verne.
Oh yeah. I broke 3 of his ribs.
Did you?
He said, "You finally got me, you fat brick." Yeah, I started with Verne and I don't get along. Period. When that's another whole story. That would be a whole interview by itself.
Mm. Wow.
So
now, do you have problems when you run into him? Because I know he's going to be here tomorrow.
No, he's not coming now.
Oh, there was something that they posted on the website that said he was coming.
Yeah, and then I just heard in there now from him that Greg is coming, and the flight was delayed now until 8 something.
Oh wow, okay.
So are you going to interview Greg or
no? Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, well anyway, Verne has dementia and Alzheimer's, and I saw him at the Hall of Fame in Waterloo, and the guy walked up to him and started talking. He knew him all his life, and he said, "Do I know you?" You know, so
yeah.
But I'm not saying that derogatory. I'm just saying that we all going to make it to that stage. You know?
Yeah.
You know, we still got our faculties. There, some of them. I find myself finding hard sometimes to recall names, but
it's amazing. Thus far, you're pulling out stories from the 50s like they just happened yesterday. You got a great memory.
Well, yeah, but you know, some things I go on an appointment and the guy calls and talks to me and I forget to bring the tablet with me. I call back. I said, "What was that guy's name again?" You know? But something that happened 25 years ago, I can tell you, it's amazing.
Wow.
You know, I think that happens a lot though with senior citizens, which I am now.
Yeah.
I'll be 73 my next birthday.
Wow. You look amazing for your age. You look like you get in there tomorrow and tune them up.
I don't know. I got this knee that I'm like an old inner tube, you know. I get a blowout and I put a patch on it, and then something else blows out, you know. And
if you look back on it, Verne in the AWA, it looked like he had a hell of a crew in the late 70s and the early 80s. Do you think if Verne went national, he could have done something back then?
Yeah, he had it all. Because he was putting wrestling back into wrestling, you know, and everything that he did was. Not like today, everybody in the same locker rooms. I mean, he made it. He made it a contest, or appeared to be a contest, and he did try to do everything the right way, and he was very emphatic about the business.
Yeah,
because being a national amateur champion and Dan Gable category, you know, you understand what I'm talking about. So they have a certain pride, and then. You find out later on that it was, you know, that some of it wasn't quite what it was, should be, or could have been.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I think what happened with Verne is that he had the match between Bockwinkel and now the name skips me. Big blonde-haired
Hogan?
guy. Huh?
Hogan.
I'm sorry. There I had one of them moments, senior moment. And there was a second match, and it was completely sold out in St. Paul. And then big sellout, big building. And Bockwinkel won. And it just took Hogan, and then Hogan would go on that AWA tape, and you listen to what he did to him, and screwed him out of some money. And then that's when Vince called, and he went with Vince.
Yeah.
So he said Vince stole him. Well, Vince didn't stole him. Verne run him off. And going back to your question of if he could have run it all, no. I think that he certainly had he had the right track. He was on the right track, but he couldn't take the altitude.
Yeah.
It was too much a Verne Gagne show. I hate to say that, but somehow you'd have to get to a certain level, and then pretty soon he'd be in the main event.
Yeah.
You know, so you understand.
Sure. Absolutely.
And if he'd have just left it like Vince does, he runs the business. and let somebody else do the work, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Pull the strings.
He's still making the money anyway.
Well, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. When Verne went national on ESPN, did he try and get you back involved and get you in the mix?
Yeah, him and I, we got that oil, and
yeah.
He liked me. They had one match after we did after I saved his boy, you know, on the Bachwiggle thing, and all it was that we were in a tag team deal against them one time, and the whole hour the people says, "We want the X, we want the X." And Gagne, well, that was a killer for you.
Yeah.
So he comes down. He says, "What's going on here?" I said, "Verne, just stay there. I can handle this all by myself. I don't need you." What? You know, you tell a guy with an ego like that to stay in a corner and shut up.
Yeah.
TitleMatchNetwork.com